Right. Okay, we're live now. So I'm going to send you the link right now to your the email we normally correspond with.
Okay.
So John Schreiber. Right. Link has been sent.
All right. Refreshing my email. I got the got an email from 10:53, but there's no link in that.
Right, I've just sent you. We got 10 people viewing. So just let me.
There we go.
Right. Okay. Hi guys, we're just going to sort everything out while me and Hooter get everything sorted technically, and we'll be with you shortly. Right.
And drop that link into Hangouts.
No, you just click that link and you'll see the comments coming through. There's a few guys in at the moment.
All right. Yeah, the link is not a hot link.
Oh, really? Give me 2 seconds. Let me try that again. Right. YouTube page. Let's see. Should give you a direct link to the questions. Right, I've sent you another one. See if that works.
All right. Hang on. I think. All right. The previous link I just cut and pasted into
the questions. Right, I've sent you another one. See if that works.
All right. All right. Hang on. I think. Yeah, I'm getting the echo.
Yeah, you just need to mute that like I told you. And
it's still not a hot link. I'm going to just drop it into a web browser.
Oh. Should be sorted. Let me see.
Okay, now I see me live and I see you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, should be sorted.
Should I see questions? Okay, now I see me live and I see you.
Mm-hmm. Do you see the questions on the side? But like, have you muted the YouTube link I've given to you?
I do not see questions.
I see you. Mm-hmm. Do you see the questions on the side? But like, have you muted the YouTube link?
Arvind Balasubramanian.
Yeah, that's the one.
All right. Yeah, I do see those.
Do you see the questions on the side? But like, have you?
Okay, I muted the YouTube.
Right. I think that that's good. Yeah. So we shouldn't have an echo now. So. Do you see what I mean about the overlay? So it doesn't delay your video yourself?
Yeah, I've got the questions highlighted. Oops, where'd they go? There they go. I see the questions. And can you see me?
So guys, can everyone see and hear me and Hooter? Okay, just let us know in the comments.
Okay.
We do. Let's see. Yes. Yes, everyone's saying yes. Okay. There we go, Hooter. Right. Okay. And just remember, Hooter, you can scroll up and down on them comment sections. So if you can get as many as you can in, and that'll be great. So we're going to start now. So hi guys, and thanks for joining us. And as you know, we are with Hooter. And if you haven't watched his interview, go and do it because it's absolutely brilliant. Hooter is a former F-4 and F-14 pilot. And yeah, Hooter, just tell us a bit about briefly about your career and what you're up to recently.
All right, I'll do that. Hang on a second. I'm manipulating the windows here so I don't get pop-ups. All right. Joined the Navy in 1977, straight out of college. And did I lose you guys?
No, you're still here.
It went blank on me here. And straight out of college, I had a job running a golf course for a little bit prior to going into the Navy, but went through naval aviation officer candidate class and stuff like that. Went off to started flying pretty quickly afterwards. Well, it was about a year later, flying T-28s out of Corpus Christi, which was kind of fun. And then off to Beeville to fly T2s and TA-4Js, where I did my first carrier landings. Then off to Miramar to fly Phantoms. Did that for about 4 years. Did a couple of cruises on the Coral Sea with VF-154. And then went back as a flight instructor to Beeville, a flight instructor in TA-4Js, then F-14s, then Naval Postgraduate School, and then out into the commercial world. And right now I have my own small business, do some flying for air-to-air photography and sky typers, and sometimes a little sightseeing tour around Los Angeles Basin. Nothing too straining. And then some engineering work and IT work with the government, doing stuff for government agencies. And that's about where I am right now.
So Hooter, like, you can see the questions coming in, so why didn't you just start answering them, and hopefully we'll see some good ones coming through the next hour.
I will do that. All right, here we go. Let me go back to the top. All right, sound. Let's see, I see a question from Mr. Balasubramanian. F-15, MiG-21, or Su-27? If I have to choose one to fight, I'd fight the MiG-21, either airplane that I flew, F-4 or F-14. It's a good airplane, but I think I could kill it. F-15, I fought many times with the F-4, and I got to learn how to turn around and fly while looking backwards a lot. Su-27, never did get to fight one of those, but I think that would be a challenge, and certainly in the F-4. F-14D, I think, would give it a run for the money. Let's see, have I ever been in a post-stall gyration in the F-4? I was thinking about that just last night because it ran through my head. I did have to deploy the chute once. It was a pretty fun ride. Came right out of it, and once you get above about 250 knots, the chute fails, and you go on, and we just went back and landed. Okay. Hello, Hooter. I once read that the F-4 had an infrared search and track, the F-14 too. Were they useful systems, or they were not used often? The F-4 had something like that, but I never got to use it. I don't know if it had been used in other places. We also had a system, an IR system in the cockpit of the F-4 for helmet steering of the sensors, of the IR sensors, and I think the radar, but that never worked either. The F-14 had some good stuff. B and D certainly had better stuff than the A. We had the I forget what they call it, the FLIR stuff that looked forward and had the infrared, and we used that on occasion. That was pretty good for getting long range visual IDs. I don't think at the time with our ROE we could shoot on that if we used it. But yeah, those are all good things, but didn't really work in the world I flew in. Let's see. Talk about air-to-air tactics versus Warsaw Pact jets. Well, unfortunately, I didn't do a whole lot of European stuff. I did a Pacific Indian Ocean kind of thing, but I have fought against F-104s, THUDs. I think I flew against a F-106 once. Really big fights, really fast fights, really short fights, because everybody runs out of gas really quick on those things. I did fly against some Soviet airplanes that were in constant peg. That is declassified now, so I can say that. That was very interesting. And I did have an intercept against a flogger coming out of Vietnam with the F-14. And that was a very interesting fight. So I guess yes to some degree. Let's see, talk about it. We did that one. Let's see, scroll up here. What is TCS? I want to make sure I don't miss any. Ooh, pitching deck at night, white knuckles. The knuckles weren't white, the entire body was white. But let's see. My dream jet. At the time, I think when I was flying F-4s, I actually got orders to fly F-15s, and I wish that would have happened. Shortly after I went on cruise, they changed my orders to fly the TA-4 as a flight instructor in Beeville, and which was fun. It was great. I got a whole lot of .8s because I did primarily air combat maneuvering training, but I trained in all aspects of it, instrument and formation, tactical flying. I actually had Mark Kelly as one of my students, the astronaut. He ended up doing better than I did. Certainly, I flew a couple of TAC form flights with him when he came through. But I would probably go with the F-15. The F-4 and the F-14 were great airplanes. I wish the F-14 had the real motors, but it was good as I flew it, and I appreciated the opportunity. Let's see, what was your scariest flight in the F-14? One that should have been the scariest, but I was kind of ready for it, so it wasn't too terribly scary, was I had an engine failure on takeoff off the Coral Sea. And the reason I was ready for it is I was an Alert 5 launch and had been doing some maintenance stuff prior to actually starting the Alert 5. And I knew there were some switches out of position, but I couldn't find them in the short period of time from starting up and taxiing out and taking off. And I just remember telling my backseater, hey, be ready for anything. And sure enough, at the end of the cat shot, weight off wheels, I think it was the right engine just shut down. Apparently, big fireball out of the back end. And what had done is put a switch to test the ramps that are in the intakes. And as soon as I got weight off wheels, it thought it was supersonic. The ramp went down, choked the air out of the right engine. It failed, and the airplane just kind of slowly yawed. I didn't do a normal clearing turn. It slowly yawed, and I just kind of let it go. We settled down below the flight deck. We looked through the ship, through the elevator doors there. Not the elevator, but some sponson doors. And then we flew off and got it out of the way from the boat. And I found the right switch, put it in the right position, and started it back up. And then there was a flight at night where I got sick, and they had to do an emergency pull forward. I didn't think I was going to make it back to the boat. And I flew a good night pass and landed, taxied, and I disappeared for a week after that. That was kind of scary. And there was a night, little bit of pitching deck. I was a little high, fast start, pulled some power off, and was just a second late on getting the power back on. And I went from a nice centered ball to a settling ball to a taxi one wire. That was kind of scary. I just felt like I had no control over that, and it just happened like that. So those are my scary F-14 flights. All right, just finished reading the brand new Haynes. Oh, the Haynes manual. I haven't seen that yet. I'm interested to see that. So it's on the way apparently. How accurate was the Phoenix system when you were flying the F-14? I never got to fire a Phoenix. They were $1 million missiles. I think each squadron got 1 or 2 per turnaround cycle. Maybe it was just 1, or I think we did a turnaround where we didn't do any. But I remember we shot 1 while I was in VF2. So as far as I know, the thing had a pretty good track record. You know, I've seen all the tapes. All the stuff that we did was successful, and as far as I can tell, it was a really great missile. Let's see. Dream X jets for the USA that should have been built. F-23 Tiger. Oh yeah, I like the F-23. That's a very good. That's a nice memory there. I thought that was going to be a great airplane. Too bad it didn't turn out that way. You know what, the X jets, I've kind of lost track of them, and I don't really know. The forward swept wing thing that NASA did was interesting just because it was forward swept wing, but other than that, I kind of I don't, you know, there's the I don't really know. I can't really answer that one. Let's see, Adam Cotton. Am I right in thinking the early F-14A had quite a number of engine issues? Yeah, well, maybe it didn't have a lot of engine issues, but it had one big one that led to reliability and performance problems. Well, the engine itself was good, but it was paired with an airplane that needed more. So I wouldn't say the engine was bad. I wouldn't say the airplane was bad. That particular marriage was struggling. You just had to understand, like every airplane, there's an envelope for all parts of the airplane, and you just have to understand it and respect it. And you wanted to do more because you could do more and you knew you could do more, but you still have to fly within the limits of the aircraft, whatever those are. So yeah, it tended to stall at high angle of attack and sudden throttle movements and things like that. Let's see, pitching at night, pitching deck at night. Yeah, that's not fun. I've seen some pretty horrendous pitching deck. Most of the time I was on deck as an LSO. I've seen the main mounts come through the top of the wing of an F-4 as a skipper of our sister squadron landed one night. He didn't do anything wrong. It just, the deck was down. He came over around down and it came up. The airplane came down and he turned it into a squatty little airplane with a couple of big holes in the top of the wing. Seen some, I'd say 40+ foot movement on the deck during the day. And I know we sent a whole bunch of guys back to Miramar one day because it was absolutely clear out, but the winds were crazy and the seas were high. And I mean, you could see the propeller, the prop coming out of the water on the boats that were around us as they were pitching around. So I'm sure that deck looked crazy to those folks that were trying to get aboard that day. Yeah, pitching deck at night is as bad as it gets, and you land and you're completely shaking and can't wait to get below deck and get a slider and watch everybody else. All right, when you flew the F-14, did you ever use the IRST? Whoops, where'd it go? Oh, it just skipped on me. Hold on, let me scroll back up. Did you ever use the IRST, or did the F-14 you flew have the TCS? We actually had TCS. I did not have IRST, so I'll correct what I said earlier. And we used TCS. I think they were just getting IRST when I left. What is TCS? I think it was called Television Camera System. And it was pretty good. It could reach out and you could identify the airplanes at beyond visual range. You know, you could see the airplane out there and you had it locked up and you could tell what it was and see if it's a bad guy. It was good. It was pretty good. Let's see. Have you ever wanted to fly the oh God, yes. The F-22? Sure, that'd be a lot of fun. I think it's more airplane than I could handle at this age, but sure would be fun to do. Could they have improved the F-14 so it could be the 4th gen fighter? Oh, yeah. I think the F-14 still had life in it, but everything has a supply chain, and supply chains get expensive when things get old, and I think that was what killed it. It wasn't so much performance shortfalls. The F-14D, I think, would have been a good 4th gen plus fighter. You know, not 5th gen because it wasn't stealth, but I think it would have been a good 4th gen fighter. All right. Let's see. Was there ever any friendly arguments between pilots over whether the F-14 was better than the F-18? Friendly? Yeah, probably not. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, all the time. Everybody likes their jet, and it's you have to remember comparing U.S. airplanes to other U.S. airplanes isn't really a valid argument because we're not built to beat ourselves. So the F-15 argument, the F-18 argument, completely different kind of focus on each of those airplanes. And what we did stop doing while I was a youngster in the Navy is stop fighting 1v1 similar. So two F-14s or two F-4s or two A-4s go out to the area and just fight because, everyone's pulling as hard as they can and planes were coming back broken. So they kind of put an end to that because it's just not really good training. You sometimes have to do that, but you just keep it under control. Why do you think it took so long to fix the F-14 engine problems? Congress. It just they didn't want to fund the program. That started a long time before the F-14 made its first flight. It just ran out of money, so they put the TF-30s in there, and finally they got to the 110s, and I wish it had happened sooner. But it's all politics and money. I don't think there were technical issues on the engine at all. I may be wrong. What is the right stuff in your mind, John? And who is your favorite fighter pilot? Well, you know what I'm supposed to say. You're looking at it. But that's not the case. There are a lot of guys I flew with that were so good. They could climb in an airplane and just make it look like a ballet dancer out there. Duke Cunningham is one of those guys, and he could come back and reconstruct a flight for you. It was like you were doing it on videotape. I just dated myself. But a lot of good pilots out there. A lot of good backseaters that make the pilots good too. I had a lot of guys. Bio was one of my backseaters. A guy named Reef Mahaffey was a backseater in F4s. There a lot of guys that just really helped out, and it was fun to do it as a team. I wouldn't say there's a favorite. There's a lot of good guys out there, and if I were to start, another guy I'll talk about is Ramjet Ryan. He was a F4 pilot. He was a bogey pilot, and he was just a good stick. One of the guys that I remember, and I still see him on occasion. But I don't think I ran into anybody that I would say was not good. Whether they were my favorite or not, that would have been tough to say, but that would be a hard thing to answer precisely. Let's see. In your view, in the 80s and later, was there ever any change of the F-14s coming? Oh, chance of F-14s coming up against Iranian Tomcats? And yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, and this is a true story, I was running flight school out at Santa Monica, and there was an Iranian guy that had an airplane there. He was U.S. at the time. I mean, he'd become a U.S. citizen. And we started talking, and he had gone through 124, the F-14 rag at Miramar, just before I did. And he named off a bunch of the guys. He knew a lot of my friends, and he said, he was sitting in Iran or flying a cap or something like that, and he knew the guys he was flying against. So yeah, that was very real. And we talked about it on the ship. And same thing with the F4s. There were guys flying F4s out of there, and it was an odd experience. But we never we never fought, and I didn't shoot any of them. I don't think we did anyway. If you were directing a new Top Gun movie, who would you cast, and what? Who would I cast? Me, of course. What aircraft would you use? Good question. I'm not an artist, so I would probably never be selected for that, certainly. But the F-18 is a neat looking airplane, and the EF-18, the Growler, is a cool looking airplane too. There's so many things hanging off of it. Some of the fighters in Europe, in the EU are cool looking airplanes. So there's a lot of ways you could go with that. Let's see. Read Top Gun, Tom Wolfe's book? Absolutely. I'm sure there was a little artistic license in the fighter jock description in there, but you know, the way he was describing them is they were confident, they were professional, they wanted to get the job done. They took risks, but they took them knowingly. And I think those are all appropriate things. A lot of times, guys, that have only flown general aviation, they hear I flew F-4s and F-14s. Wow, you must enjoy taking a lot of risk. And I'm like, when I flew the F-4 and F-14, I had afterburners, and sometimes greater than 1-to-1 thrust to weight. I had ejection seats, and I had -2 to +7 Gs available. And those three things get you out of a whole lot of stupid. You, Mr. 172 pilot, as soon as you take off, you're at the edge of your envelope, and you got to be very careful. And you don't have a way to get out. You ride that puppy in. So everything has an envelope. You stay inside of it, and life is good. Well, let's see. How confident were you in F-14 to engage any possible threat against you or your battle group? By that I mean any category, make, fighter out there. Hey, that's what we had to do. We trained to that. I will tell you the absolute truth. The only country I didn't want to fight at the time were the Israelis, because they were damn good, because they were doing it a lot. But everybody else, fair game. How was the Tomcat when landing on a carrier? It was good. A little bit of the ones I flew, a little bit of spool up time. So if you got back on the power curve, you better react pretty quickly. But it was a pretty good airplane. Had good systems. It was honest behind the boat. It was good. I never had to make a wing sweep back kind of landing. I don't know if that was ever done. That would have been kind of scary, I think. But it was, all Navy landings are hard landings. You're coming down, I don't know the exact number, 500-600 feet per minute. So it's a good bounce on your backside when you land, and push forward when the hook grabs. So it's all very exciting, and you get what you get. Let's see. You guys are cranking out some questions. Do you remember Top Gun? What do you think the actors were? Oh, Top Gun? That's funny. Pete Pettigrew was an advisor on that, and I think one of his famous comments was when people were talking about, hey, we wouldn't be flying this close, we wouldn't do these types of things. That's just art. He would tell all the guys at Miramar, hey, you're lucky it's not a musical. So let's just go with that. The photography was spectacular. I guess the orchestrating of the scenes was amazingly precise and disciplined. I think they did lose a pilot during that. I want to say Art Scholl, but I'm not sure. I think they lost somebody, but I don't know that it had anything to do with any of the scenes that were shot. But the history of that. The other Navy thing that was a big hit was Officer and a Gentleman. I remember I think I was in training command when that came through, and messages came out: don't help if you get asked by anyone. Don't help these guys. We're not going to be anything part of it. So they shot it at some closed base, and they didn't have a whole lot of real stuff. When the Top Gun came around, the Navy supported that 100%, and Top Gun got behind it. And I think all in all, they did a pretty good job. I mean, when it's on, I still watch it, and I laugh at some of the stuff they say, but some of it's pretty good. Like do some pilot shit up there. It's pretty good stuff. Let's see. And the actors worked. I wasn't there at the time, but the folks I talked to that were part of it, they said they were all very professional and understood what was going on and really liked, really tried hard to make it as realistic as possible. If it hasn't been asked, any interesting stories on scrambling? The most interesting story about scrambling or an alert launch is when, and I told this on my interview with Mike, when a guy named Pager, he made his first Alert 5 launch. We had told him that, you know, you don't do the normal clearing turn away from the ship and go out the 8 or 10 miles and then turn. You turn immediately to the vector they give you. Well, he launched off the angle deck and the vector was off to the right. Well, so is the rest of the boat after you leave the angle deck. And he turned immediately, cleaning up, bringing the gear and flaps up. And he is flight deck level, 90 degrees angle bank, maybe 100 yards in front of the ship, maybe a little further, but you could see right into the cockpit. And that was a very aggressive turn. And he got to meet a lot of senior people when he got back. Let's see, carrier life and food. Yeah, Groundhog Day, that's all I can say there. It's very routine. I didn't do any of the really crazy cruises like the America did, you know, with their 9-month, 12-month cruises, and like a lot of other guys have done more recently. All my cruises were pretty much close to 6 months. You try not to think about that. You just, you know, do your job and get on with your life. The food is not bad, but on occasion when you're pretty far away and, as the saying goes, when the meat is green and the lettuce is brown, it's time to get new food. But generally speaking, it was pretty good. There was one occasion when we had pizza that had broccoli on it. That wasn't good. Nah, you shouldn't put broccoli on pizza. Not good. All right. What did USN pilots think of the Falklands Air War? Were they interested in the dissimilar aspect? And large scale, the Falkland War, you know, we kind of watched it and understood, and there was certainly a lot of support from the U.S. in that. The Exocet missile, got to respect that thing. The planes that were flying, A4s, Super Entendards, and whatever else was out there, Harriers, and I think some F4s, I think British F4s as well. I can't remember details, but yeah, we watched it, we paid attention to it. Is it true that the Greyhounds are harder to land than the jets because they are so much bigger? I imagine that is. I have no idea. I've rode in the back of them, and that's always kind of an interesting thing. But you know, all airplanes are hard to land on the boat. But if they lose an engine, I saw an E2 lose an engine on a bolter, and that guy did one hell of a good job keeping that airplane out of the water. I mean, it yawed like crazy, and he made it back around, did a great single engine approach. I mean, that guy was a good stick. Let's see, did you ever see the fixed wing variant of the F-14? I did not. I didn't know there was. I know the early version was a single tail, and I think it was manually adjusted wings. I think I saw that. I think they called that the 404 or something like that, some weird number. But I haven't seen a fixed wing version. Best funny conversations while in a flight. Well, two that I remember clearly off the top of my head. Now let me get back to where that was. An A7 pilot flying at night down somewhere in Florida. I could only hear his side of the conversation. I couldn't hear the controller, but at one point the A7 pilot said, "Put down your cup of coffee and give me clearance to land." That was kind of funny. And when me and Paul Payne were flying cross country one night out of Miramar, we were going from Miramar to Dayton, Ohio for the air show. And we had, I think we had stopped at Tinker and gotten gas. We took off and flying north, and we could actually see the Northern Lights. And someone came up, some airliner came up and said, "Oh, look at the Southern Lights." And someone else said, So those are the northern lights, you bozo, something to that effect. So those things kind of, you hear them every once in a while. All right, you mentioned 8G in F-14 in your interview. What was the highest G's you pulled in the F-14? Probably around 7. I don't know that I got 8 G's, and I think that it was a very small segment if you could get 8 G's. I don't remember the envelope exactly. Cornering speed was, I think, 325 or something like that. The most G's I've pulled, and I did it, I think, 2 times, was maximum G's, at least 10 in the F4. I had a failure of the artificial feel. And that type of failure, what happened is when you put a little bit of backstick, it went full leading edge down. So I was pulling out of a bomb run over by El Centro and put a little backstick in, and it pegged, it squared the corner. I mean, it was like, whoa. And you could tell, I mean, it physically hurt. All the sweat just went straight down onto my lap. And I unloaded, and the backseater said, load it back up. And because, we're not too far from the ground. And I pulled again, another notch at 10 G's. And we kind of just staggered back up and made it back to Miramar and bent a whole lot of stuff on that airplane that day. That hurts. 10 G hurts. And that was only for a brief period of time. Have you heard of DCS World? It's a great air combat game. I have not heard of that. I'm not good at the games for some reason. I just don't have a good feel for that, so I don't chase those things down. Did you train for ground attack on the F-4? Yep, we did bombing. We did strafing in the F-14, which is a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. I kind of enjoyed the bombing in the F-4, although it could get kind of hard if you didn't do everything right, because you had an iron bomb sight and you had to set the mills, and it mattered about wind and weaponeering and all this other kind of stuff. And if you set that thing wrong, you weren't going to hit. You'd hit the ground, but nowhere near where you wanted to. I didn't do any bombing, though, in the F-14. That was after I left. Let's see. What can you comment on the F-14 range? Good enough? Oh, the F-14 range was amazing. I've been 600 miles from the ship. Of course, you tank to get that far away. And there was a thing called tank saw that really got you out there. I think with tank saw, we could go 1,000 miles away from the ship. That was a very complex and difficult thing to do. I don't know if you could find tank saw online somewhere or not, but it was an interesting thing. So, and the F-14 range, it was a big airplane, a lot of gas. Yeah, it was good. Let's see. Did you ever fly against German F-4 pilots in training? Were they good? I did not. I did not fly against any of the Germans. I heard they were pretty good, and I expect they were. Someone commented that it was Art Scholl that was lost during the filming of Top Gun, during the flat inverted spin scene, whatever they were doing with that. So yeah, that was sad. Let's see. Someone wanting to join the RAF as a fast jet pilot. What advice would you give to one who is preparing to go through selection? Be honest with yourself. Be honest with everyone else, work hard, and enjoy what happens to you. You're not always going to get what you want, but enjoy what you're going to do, because it's all cool stuff. So keep your mind open and have fun with it. Okay, that's a follow on that. What Red Force aircraft would you, whoops, where'd it go? What Red Force aircraft would you have been most concerned with engaging, and why? How did you train to fight aircraft not in the inventory of nations friendly to us? Let's see. What was out there? I trained mostly against the the MiG-17, MiG-21, the Flogger. Didn't really, I don't think we did any flanker kind of stuff, and then all the bombers and that stuff. We knew the capabilities. We could figure out the capabilities, what the envelope was of the others. But there was, I was never really too concerned with engaging anybody. I felt pretty confident that we had a pretty good system and would prevail for the most part, given the right ROE. ROE could have held us back a little bit. Do I think the variable wing sweep is an outdated concept, or would it be viable for some future fighter? I think it's a great idea, but the maintenance on it and everything else might be a kill pill, because you don't want that to fail. I could see it being used for future airplanes, sure. If it's the right fit and it's the right, if it gets you to the right envelope, that would be good. Let's see, someone like Final Countdown. That was a pretty good movie. I agree. VTOL fighter. I don't know enough about the F-35 to weigh in on that. Certainly the Harrier was a very capable airplane. Had some Marine friends that flew that. It's an interesting concept. What's your view on the F-35 program? Oops. And its cost overruns. Seems amazing that people seem to think it can replace the A-10. Boy, the A-10 is a capable airplane. Like I said, I don't know much about the F-35 program. Just haven't been following it. I personally don't like single engine fighters, just because two engines is a little bit safer and a little more likely to get back home. I've heard the F-35 is pretty amazing though, but I don't really know anything about it. Design 303F was the fixed wing F-14, like a flattened out F-15. That's just a comment somebody left there. Very cool. I did not know that. Just lighthearted curiosity, but are the model jets behind you on your bookshelf plastic construction kits or ready-made die-cast models? They are not ready-made and they are not plastic. They are all, yes, they are all out of someplace in the Philippines near Clark Air Force Base. I forget the name of it, but every time we'd go on cruise, we'd get our orders in early and they'd get those things to us in a couple of days. It was pretty amazing. Hand carved out of whatever kind of wood they use. I have no idea, but they're pretty amazing. These have been moved a whole lot, so if you were to look at them closely, they've been banged up, a lot of battle damage on them. What was the main difference between F4 Rio and F-14's Rio? The F-14 Rio had more to do in the back seat because they had things that it could only do. You could fly the F4 solo, and I've done that a couple of times. Like I said, they're all good guys. They all knew how to romance whatever systems they had to work in terms of the weapon systems. They all had their head on their shoulders and knew what was going on, and they were, I liked them all. Let's see, do you ever get into the situation where you can't land on the ship and have to divert to land? I have bingoed, I think once, maybe twice, when just running out of gas and couldn't get to a tanker, so you go to your divert field. If the tanker shows up in front of you, then you tank. But I happened to be too far away and the tanker couldn't catch up. I think our tanker at the time, I think we had an S3, and it just couldn't get there, so I just went to Hawaii and landed and went back out. Let's see. Reviews the F-22 and the F-35 and compare them to the F-14. F-22, very capable airplane. F-35, I don't know that much about. but I suspect they are all better than the F-14 in terms of their envelope. I don't know what they are. The systems, I guess the F-35 and the F-22 have like $400,000 helmets where you can look through the bottom of the airplane. That would be convenient at times. Ejection underwater, any stories or training? Seen some USAF videos on it. Looks like horror. I suspect it would be. I did know a guy that ejected under a carrier out of an F-8. Can't remember his name or his call sign. But he's when I talked to him about it, he said he didn't know what else to do. So he just waited till he just looked up at the ship and watched it go over. And when the ship was past him, he pulled the ejection handle and he came out. And we do train for that. You saw the Dilbert Dunker and everything where you don't train for ejecting underwater, but you train for getting out of the airplane underwater. No UFOs, haven't seen any UFOs. I understand there's something going on these days about that, but I did not see any UFOs. Saw some cool stuff. I mean, when you turn down the lights in the cockpit, you know, you're real high out of the atmosphere, so you can see some, you know, a lot more stars, and you can see satellites and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool. Do you think that an F-14 with a Top Gun pilot could take on a Eurofighter? Yeah, I suspect so. I mean, it would be an interesting fight. I don't know what the envelope is of the Eurofighter, but F-14 is a capable airplane. It would be an interesting fight. Was there an F-14 that was called Bobcat instead of Tomcat? No, you're thinking of Bombcat. When we put bombs on the airplane, the nickname sort of became Bombcat. It wasn't officially called that. It was just the aircrew calling it the Bombcat. I had not heard of a Bobcat version. I don't know what that would be if they were dropping angry cats on people. Maybe you could call it a Bobcat. Let's see. Did you operate on carrier with the RF-8 Crusader? Could you have flown it? Yeah. Flying an airplane is pretty simple. I mean, you just have, it's the systems and the switchology that's a problem. Flying the airplane is not a problem. The F-8, we flew with RF-8s on the Coral Sea, and I was supposed to cross-train in them. So I got some simulator time, and the cockpit was a neat cockpit. Had some interesting things with regard to how you trim it up. Yeah, they were around Miramar and hard light afterburners, and they're a cool airplane. They sounded good when they're going really fast too. Let's see. I lost my track here. Where are we? Okay, what was the most difficult adversary aircraft you faced? Well, the only true adversary aircraft I faced was a flogger out of Vietnam. We didn't get to shoot, but so that's the only real adversary. But the F-5 was a tough fight. The A-4 was a tough fight, flown by the right guy. As long as they flew a smart fight, and if you didn't fly a smart fight, you'd get shot. Certainly the F-15, you know, that was tough, and of course the A-10, as someone characterized it, as like knife fighting a midget in a phone booth. And if you got slow with an A-10, you were going to die. There's nothing else to be said about that. And I did that once, and my backseater, as I rolled in on the A-10s on a red flag we were on, he just came over the radio and said, just assume that I've ejected from the airplane already. You are on your own in this mess. And I just got tore up. Let's see. Reviews on choice of the F-18 instead of the F-35. And you know, like I said earlier, they can do whatever they want in the new Top Gun movie. I like the F-18, and I think it'll be good. What Russian aircraft have I intercepted? I think a Cub and a May, and of course the flogger, but that was out of Vietnam. I think it was a Russian pilot flying it. I didn't get to do the Bear. I just never got the opportunity to intercept a Bear. I was vectored on a Badger or a Bison. I can't remember which one it was once, but we were in the clouds the whole time, and it was just scary. We were close to airplanes, and we could see them on our radar. The E-2 is telling us they're nearby, but it was completely clouded up. I mean, we were flying in real heavy rain, and that was just kind of scary. And I did, when I did the stuff in the desert with constant peg, Flogger, I think there was a MiG-17. I think that's all, and a MiG-21. Any airplane would you have loved to fly besides F-15? Yeah, almost all of them. Like I said in my interview, probably, the first plane I flew in as a kid was a Comanche, and the first commercial airplane I flew in was a DC-3, and I just liked it. I like the DC-3. But there's a whole lot of airplanes out there I would love to fly, and you just get too old for that stuff. And those that are able to climb into a lot of different airplanes, I envy the time they take to train to that. Let's see. Did you use the camera pod? Yeah, I was TARPS qualified. My last flight in the F-14 was actually a TARPS flight. And the engine failure I described was a TARPS flight. I was as heavy as you could be and lost an engine, and that was kind of interesting. And it took good. It was a good mission, and it took good, collected good intel. Britain fell at the second fence in the whole global fighter game. If you liken fences to generations, but still the U.S. Navy likes Martin Baker. Why doesn't the USF use Martin? I don't know. I flew Martin Bakers. I flew in escape packs. They're all pretty good seats. I strapped on what they gave me. Royal Navy forced to use small carriers in the early 80s. Doesn't make any sense to you. They have to me, if they have a super carrier. That's a political decision. It's a strategic decision. It's a lot of money to build a big carrier. A lot of money to build a small carrier. But I don't really have any opinion on that other than it would be interesting. Let's see. Do you think of going into civil aviation after your time in? I did not. It was never really my goal to be an airline pilot. A lot of my friends did. It's just something I didn't want to do. I didn't even get my civil certifications after I got out of the Navy. I just didn't want. I didn't want to fly sometimes and not be proficient and maybe have an emergency with my family on board. So I just really didn't do it. And then after a bit of time, I decided once my kids got older and I got crazier, I guess, I went and got my private and commercial and instrument and all that. So I have all that now and fly as often as I can. It's still, I would like to fly more. Just I like to be in the airplane a lot more than I'm able to do. Dogfighting era is over. That argument has come up many times, and that's why the F-4 didn't have a gun. Probably not yet. It's still going to go on for a while. Has the last fighter pilot been born? Some say yes. I don't think so, but we'll see. Let's see. Adam came up with shortly after I got my private license, an RF Jaguar pilot tried to check out at the 172 in the flying club I belonged to. He wasn't cleared for solo because he couldn't land safely. That seemed odd. I agree. That was the hardest thing. I don't know how Jaguar pilots land. I imagine, land like jets, but it's a different look. I got in a 172, which by the way had much more capable navigation and communication systems than I ever had in the Navy. It was a full glass cockpit 172 SP, I think. And I was just amazed at all the pretty colors and moving map and all that kind of stuff. The only moving map I had was when it would move from my leg to the floor and I have to reach down and get it. That's a bad joke. Sorry about that. I had trouble. You sit really low to the ground in a 172, and the light came on for me for landing when I was driving my car. I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is about how high off the ground I am. I need to reset, because I was still thinking I was doing things at 12 to 15 feet. And my flight instructor was like, no, don't do that yet. No, don't do that. It was hard for me to learn how to land too, because I wanted to set an attitude and drive it in. And he kept making me want to flare it. And it was hard for me to do that. That took me, that was the most difficult for me as well. If Cold War turned hot, how effective the Tomcat AIM-54 would have been as a first defender against massive Soviet bomber raids? I guess they would have tried saturation tactics with ALCMs. Like I said, if we were given the right ROE, it would have been an interesting fight. Air launch cruise missiles, yeah, that's a scary thing, but we have a lot of capability of shooting those before they get all the way inside of a boat. What's that thing on the CWIS? I forget what that stands for, but the close-in weapon system. There you go. Those things are impressive, and they can, if they track the ALCM, they're going to shoot it. How long and what kind of flight profile? Rats. Sorry about that, guys. Would you use to reach max speed on F-14? Max speed. You know what? I can't remember what the max speed is. I think the fastest I've been in the F-14 was about, I want to say about 1.4 or something. Flight profile and altitude, you generally get up as high as you can and unload with an afterburner. So it's kind of an arc kind of thing. There's probably a lot of different ways of doing it, but that's how we would do it. Just unload in afterburner and off you go. What warbird would you like to fly? Certainly the P-51, but there's a lot of them that I would like to fly. Hooter, I'm 27 years old and can't make it into a military pilot in my country. Still, I'm aiming for a private license and eventually get to acrobatic airplanes. Do you think it's still worth it? And this is from Ivan Mariscal. Yeah, man, if you want to fly, go fly. Get your private license, do what you want to do. I talked when I was a flight instructor, and I did this myself. I just cut myself off from flying for a long time. If you want to fly, go fly, and you'll love it. And if you don't love it, stop flying. But just give it a shot. And that was really my decision when I got out of college. That was my thought process. If I don't try it now, I won't have the chance. The Warren guy does the ski movies. If you don't try it now, you'll be a year older when you do. So, yeah, go do it. Go have fun.
So, Hooter,
yeah.
Are you willing to go on for another 20 minutes, or is that you done for the day?
Oh, you're asking a fighter pilot to stop telling stories? Shoot, I can talk all day.
Right, okay, guys, because Hooter.
Oh, I lost you.
Oh, is my mic on? So,
Hooter,
could you go on for another half an hour, and answer all our viewers' questions, or are you busy?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm busy, but this is more interesting than what I got to do.
Right. Okay, guys. So we're gonna do an extended Q&A tonight with Hooter. So we're gonna be on for another half an hour. If you guys want, well, I'm sure you want it because obviously the questions are coming in. So if Hooter's happy with it, we're gonna go for it. Hooter, you happy? You say yes.
I'm good to go.
Right. Okay. Half an hour, guys. We're gonna answer all your questions. So, Hooter, carry on.
All right, mate. If you were transported 400 years into the past with no clothes or anything else, how would you prove that you were from the future? Well, that's an interesting question, King. How would I prove I was in the future? I hope that I would have the ability to put myself in the context of those 400 younger year guys and tell them what was going to happen the following week in their life. And they would say, how would you know that? I would say, because I read about it in high school when I was in 1970, whatever. And they'd go, wow, let's hang this guy because he's a witch. Did you like the T-28? Yeah, T-28 is a fun airplane. That was a neat airplane. A big airplane. It's the first airplane I actually flew solo. A massive thing. Makes a lot of noise, a lot of smoke and oil, and it's just cool. It was just a cool airplane. Is there any RAF keys you would have liked to get your hands on? I don't. Oh, keys to airplanes. Well, I flew the F-4, and that was in the RAF. And certainly a Spitfire would have been a fun airplane to fly, although I understand it's got a really bad stall characteristic. And some of the more recent jets, absolutely. Harrier, I would love to have flown. I'd like to have, like I said earlier, I'd like to have access to all of them if somebody'd let me do it. All right. Oh, somebody liked my map joke. Thank you for that. Let's see, where are we? Let's see who. Yeah, zigzag ground zero left. LOL map. Cool. My wife will hate that because then I'll keep telling the joke. How useful is extreme long range missiles like AIM-54 really? What do you think about BVRAAM Meteor? I don't know anything, but I have no idea what that is. Long range missiles are good if you have the ROE. If you don't have the ROE, they're weight. So you have to have the will of the politicians to let you shoot it before they become of any value. Let's see. You mentioned 8 Gs in the F-14 in your interview. What was the highest G you pulled in the F-14? I think I already answered that question. I think about 7 Gs. I don't think I went to 8 Gs. Did you ever fly with a full load of AIM-54 Phoenix missiles? No, I've flown with the AIM-54. I think our usual fit out for when we were on cruise was, I think I'm getting this right, you at least have the rails on there for the AIM-54. And if you were going into something that might be scary, you'd probably have 2 AIM-54s, 2 Sparrows, maybe 4 winders and 600 rounds of ammo, I think. I don't know specifically if I've flown with 2 AIM-54s. I certainly haven't flown with 6, but I've at least flown with 1 at some point. They're expensive missiles, I'll just tell you that. Any comments on the story about the F-14 Rio that ejected or partially ejected and the pilot landed safely? I don't think that was an F-14. I think that was a A6 where the BN got stuck at the top of the ejection seat rail. Yeah, it'd be scary as heck. And the pilot did a good job, and the BN, Jesus, what a ride. That'd be scary. Thanks a lot. Advice from F-14 pilot must be spot on. Means, oh, cool, thanks. All right. Oh, whole bunch more. I was due to join, went up. I was due to join the RAF as pilot last year until I was diagnosed with epilepsy. Oh, sorry about that. I really appreciate you taking time to answer my question. Yeah, yeah, it's. I'm sorry to hear that. It's. Yeah, sorry about that. Pull a tooth and show them the filling from your teeth. I think that's the 400-year thing. Yep, yeah, fair enough. Could I just open my mouth and show them that I have a filling instead of pulling it? Future proves past. Yes. Did you ever get your hands on the mother trophy? Actual hands on the trophy? Yes, absolutely. I have stolen it. on one occasion. And we had it for a while. And yeah, the mother was a big deal at Miramar. It was an interesting game that we played as children back then. Can we send you a giant pizza online for taking time out to talk? Thank you very much. An online pizza, sure, if you can get it through. I'm kind of a classic pepperoni guy. What am I drinking? This is not an ad. It's a Diet Coke ginger lime. My wife hates them. I love them. I don't drink a lot of this stuff. I usually drink water. What is your take on Joe Hooter Satrap's F-14 Piper on? You know what? I don't know Hooter that much. I don't follow those guys. I'm sure it's interesting. Dale and Hooter, you know, they're legends. You know, I think I met Dale once. I don't think I met Hooter. We knew a guy named Hooter, but it wasn't the same guy. And I'm sure it was interesting about whatever he's talking about. What was the max altitude you could get up to in the F-14? I don't really know. The highest I've been, I think, was 54,000 feet in the F-4. I don't remember going that high in the F-14. Certainly, I was up in the 40s on occasion. I don't think I got over 50,000. Food and drink in flight. Well, we could take it. You take an apple, banana, you know, some Pop-Tarts or sandwich, something like that, and some water and can of Coke or something. Be careful with can of Coke. As soon as you open it, could explode on you, so you had to be careful with that. Once read the story of the SR-71 pilot who saw the F-14 in an air show. He said the Tomcat beat the F-22 on the air show. Any comments on displaying the Tomcat on air show? The Tomcat air show, flown right, was an impressive air show for its day. And you know, the guys that trained to that, they worked really hard on making that look good. And I mean, they flew that good. I never got to fly the air show, but I would see them practice at Miramar on occasion. Certainly see them at air shows. But yeah, it's an impressive air show. It's a big airplane doing a lot of tight stuff. That's cool. Probably difficult to answer. This is from Adam Cotton. Probably difficult to answer, but if an F-14 and a BAC Lightning, the Lightning was the one with the engines situated vertically, I think. Engaged afterburner, reheat from a standing start at the runway threshold. Which do you think would reach 35,000 feet first? I think the F-14, but I'm not really sure what the Lightning's capabilities are. So I would, if I had to bet right now, I'd go with F-14 and might lose. Let's see. Do former fighter pilots such as yourself develop skeletal problems from years of G-force exposure? Do you at all? I don't know. There's some things that my back doesn't like to do anymore. I don't know if that's because of that. I want to say it's not that big of a deal. I don't know that it's a chronic kind of thing that happens. I hope it's not. I feel pretty good right now. As a matter of fact, I just got back from a CrossFit session that kicked my ass because I haven't been doing it for the last 2 weeks. Let's see. Did F-14 have any snagging flight peculiarities that one had to be extremely aware of? No, not at all. It was a pretty forgiving airplane. The wings did what they had to do automatically. You had a lot of capability other than the F-14A with the engines. As long as you stayed inside that envelope, you were good. But it was a pretty forgiving airplane, and it was fun to fly. Longest cap in the F-14. Like I said, I've been out to about 600 miles and then come back. And I don't know if I don't, the tank saw that I participated in, the tanker that was supposed to take us out to 1,000 didn't show up, so we had to come back early. So probably around 600 miles. You could go further if you had the tanking capacity. What's the loudest aircraft you've heard? Well, I hear airplanes all the time right now because I didn't wear hearing protection. It's when you're standing 60 to 100 feet behind any airplane and afterburner, it's pretty loud. I would suspect the F-8 when the afterburner would light, that's the loudest because it just makes a boom. You heard that on and off of the Miramar Air Station when they would light their afterburner, so that was pretty loud. But anyone in afterburner making a heck of a lot of noise. Would the F-14 have made a big impact had it been 5 years earlier to service and been duking it out in the Vietnam War? Actually, VF-1 and VF-2 flew some missions in Vietnam back in '73. I don't know if they got to shoot anybody or not, so they just got in at the end. Yeah, if the F-14 had been 5 years earlier, I think it would have been a different kind of air war anyway. Let's see. Sorry, I'm leaning forward and all that stuff, and odd look on my face while I scroll through this. How did you feel when flying for a job? Did it ever lose buzz and become routine? I can't imagine being bored of flying, and I don't even have a license yet. One day, Harry, that's a good question. You would think that would never happen, but if you're on your third or fourth flight of the day and you started at 5 in the morning and now it's 9 o'clock at night, you're pretty much tired of flying. Not so much the flying, it's the briefing and the everything else that you got to do that goes with it. Remember, an hour flight is, 3 or 4 hours of preparation and finishing. So it takes a lot of work. I tried not to get bored, but there are some times when you're sitting up there drilling circles in the sky for an hour or longer, 2 hours. It's like, oh my God, let's get back. I want a sandwich or something. It's just like, let's go back and land. Landing is exciting. So it can sometimes feel like a job, but it's a good job. Let's see. Do you think that nowadays fighter jets, this is Ivan, do you think that nowadays fighter jets like Eurofighter, Rafale, I don't even know how to pronounce that anymore, F-22 are more delicate than prior planes, Tomcat, Eagle, Phantom? I wouldn't think so. I mean, they're all capable of pulling 6+ Gs and probably going to -2. And the F-22, geez, that thing's a beast in terms of how it flies. I don't think they're delicate. They're more complex. They have more software in them. The Phantom was just, it was a beast. But I think they're all capable airplanes, and they can hang in there. We don't buy airplanes that aren't going to perform. We don't buy airplanes that will fall apart. They have to be reusable and on a pretty rapid basis. Have you ever used partial or full pressure suit while flying the F-4? No, I've never flown an airplane where a pressure suit was required. Never got to have that joy. I understand it's quite a job getting into one of those things. Let's see where. Oops, come on, scroll for me. There it is. The F-4 and Tomcat were usually not used in high altitude role. I used to fly pretty high in them, but I've also flown pretty low in them too. Let's see, this from King. Will we see some Iron Man on Sky soon? What do you think? I don't know what that means, but Well, move to the next one, Ivan. Can you show the leather jacket behind you? It looks pretty cool. This is not my leather jacket, and I put it here as a prop. This is my flight jacket. Name tag, Bula Bula Award, Tomcat patch. Black Knights, F-154. Centurion on the Coral Sea, 200. QB Dog Centurion. I ate 100 hot dogs in one det. This is CAG 14, I think. F4, top 10. I don't have a Ranger Centurion patch. I have 97 traps on the Ranger. They offered me, I've got a little over 400 total. The Air Wing LSO offered me a Centurion patch on the Ranger, and I just said, no, I've got 97. I don't have 100, so I don't want it. But I got a lot of other traps on other boats that gets me up to about 440, I think. James Caan, I haven't been told I look like James Caan. I was told I looked like a rock and roll guy from the 60s. I can't remember the name right now, but I haven't heard James Caan. Yes, I've fired. How many missiles have I fired? This is from Stephen, 197106. Have I fired a missile? I've fired a Sparrow. I fired a couple of Sidewinders. And that's always exciting. You know, firing real stuff is kind of cool. Would you willingly get inside a single-seat naval fighter? Yeah. You know, I flew the. Actually, I don't have any single-seat time. I guess that's a good question. I've flown the simulator of the F-18 and the A-7. Yeah, I'd do that, but I chose to go with a backseater because I like having people with me when I'm doing stuff that's kind of scary. How often would Rios get airsick? Normally it's the person not in control move. I've never had a backseater get sick. I got sick once in training command, but that had something to do with something else. But I got sick, threw up, and then, you know, I was on a training mission. I gave the airplane to the instructor, threw up in the bag, rolled it up, and then continued my training flight. I was just sick. Let's see. Have you experienced what? This is from Vico. Have you experienced anything scarier in the air than night carrier landing in foul weather? Been real close to an airplane I didn't see until the very last second. And you're not scared at the time it happens. You think about it, and then you're like, holy crap, holy cow, that was close. So on F-15, I swear the rivets on the bottom of them were made in Oshkosh. It was real close. My backseater was looking kind of towards the back. I was coming over a hill in the Philippines, and as I rolled to pull, an F-15 did that right in front of me, and literally I went through his burner exhaust. I mean, it was a good thump, and the backseater said, "What was that?" And I just said, "You don't even want to know." That was real close, and I could have been a fireball, and that was, but that stuff happens sometimes. But also, I was coming into El Centro one afternoon, and there's a civil airport near El Centro, near where we come in. And sure as shooting, I come around the corner, and here's this twin engine something or another turning right. He doesn't see me, and I see him at the last second. And I go and I push down and go underneath him. That was kind of scary too. That guy probably never even saw me. So yeah, those things are kind of scary. Supersonic flybys in the F-4. Yes, I have done several supersonic flybys in the F-4. And they're always fun. I mean, sometimes in the right weather conditions, right lighting conditions, the shock wave bends the light a little bit, and you can actually see like a pencil line moving forward and aft as you go supersonic, a little shadow. And if you're on a commercial airplane and the lighting is right, you can see the air over the wing, if they're flying fast enough, during part of its movement along the top of the wing, will go supersonic. You can sometimes see a little pencil line shadow on the top of the wing near the fattest part of the wing. But the lighting has to be just right, and I don't really know what that lighting is. But going supersonic is fun. It's just a number on a gauge and fuel flow going down. I mean, fuel quantity going down, fuel flow going up. So that's kind of what you get to see.
Okay, Hooter.
Yeah.
You can hopefully see, everyone can see me now. Are you okay going on for another 40 minutes? Because the questions are really coming in. Are you happy to go on for another 40 minutes? I think we would love you to stay on.
I'm good to go. If it's working for you, yeah, sure, I'll go.
Right. So, like, guys, let me know in the comments. So it's 8:20 UK time. So are you happy to go for another 40 minutes? Like, and who can answer all your questions? Let me know.
All right, I'll get back to answering questions while they respond.
Yeah, while they respond, yeah.
Hang on, phone call from someone at work.
No.
Yeah, I just told them.
No, guys, like, if you want to come on till another 40 minutes, just let us know.
I'm good to go. All right, back to the questions.
Good to go. It looks like everyone wants you on, Hooter, so I'm going to let you go. So crack on.
All right, mate. I'm glad they're having fun. Let's see, F-14 IFF radar warning systems. Any lock-ons from any foes or any stories of SAM lock missile launched during tours? No real SAM locks. We would fly through an EW range at China Lake when we would do the surface-to-air training, and they'd lock on you, and you'd see the indications, and you'd have, the whatever that missile warning system was in the airplane. I can't remember what it was called. The IFF, we trained to it, but you couldn't shoot given IFF responses that you would see. And I can't remember what they were. I remember there were a couple of different bars, a bar above, a bar below, whatever. But you couldn't shoot just on an IFF warning. I don't know that I've been locked on by a hostile for real. Not that I know of. I do remember some weird thing happening out in the Sea of Japan one night where my TACAN got slewed to something else. They called that, there was an acronym for it, meekening or something. But it was interesting. I mean, that someone could steal or give you a signal that gave you bad information. That was interesting. You want to be aware of that. What do you make of the F-35 replacing most of the jets in the U.S.? Paul, I don't really want to weigh in on that because I don't know enough about the F-35 or the procurement plan for it. Your choice from heart, F-4, F-14. Oh, everybody asked that question. This is from Dark Omen X, Dark Omen 10. Remember, I flew the A. The F-4, it was my first warbird. So my first love, I like that. If I was given the choice to climb into one of those airplanes today, I would probably be able to fly the F-4 because it's a much more basic airplane. I would probably get lost in the switchology of the F-14, but I would love to strap into either one of them right now. So I don't think I really answered that question, but I would tend to go to the F-4 at this particular point. Who do I get? This is from Ivan. Who do I get what of those? I think you mistyped something there. Oh, jacket. I think you can buy these things online now. I think they're all over the place ever since Top Gun came out. The patches don't make a whole lot of sense, but you know, you can get a Navy flight jacket or Air Force flight jacket from Sporties, I think. What was the best prank played whilst on a cruise? And don't hold back. Are things like a phantom pisser true? I don't know what a phantom pisser is. But there were lots of different things that would go on that was kind of interesting and kept the morale up. A best prank, nothing comes to mind right now, but you know, oh yes, one thing does come to mind. A buddy of mine was flying A7s. And I wasn't involved in this, but I heard about it and I thought it was funny. And he worked with the message center to create this fake message, a flash message, which was very important, and had it delivered to a squadron where there's a junior squadron duty officer late at night. And the message was that the urinal cakes, you know, the little white things you put in the urinal to keep it from smelling bad, were toxic when you would urinate on them, and had him pack them all up, go through the entire squadron in the hangar, and go to all the bathrooms and pick up the urine cakes and label them date and time and put them in Ziploc bags and so on and so forth, and then put them in a back box and take them over to some place. And everyone met him and laughed at him. So that was a pretty good prank. What was the toughest opponent you got a gun kill on an F-14 in a dogfight that you are proud of? I generally remember the things that didn't go well. So I know I've had gun solutions on various guys, A4s, F5s. I'm going to say it, maybe an F-15. I might be lying there. But a gun solution is a cool thing to get when you actually get the pipper on and you can kind of walk it around the back of the airplane. That's always very cool. I don't remember specifically what it was I did. You hadn't chosen flying career. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, where did that go? Mid-air bird strikes. If you hadn't chosen flying as a career, what would you think you'd have done instead? Well, I was running a golf course when I joined the Navy. I was a golf course superintendent. My undergraduate degree is in agronomy and plant genetics. And I did that just because it was fun. All my friends in high school were working in factories, and I was working on a golf course. Of course, I was getting out there at 5 in the morning to cut the grass and stuff like that during the summer, but I enjoyed that, so I might have done something like that. Mm-hmm. What was this from Ryan? What was the lowest flyby, and at what speed did you do the flyby? Probably the lowest flyby was against a Russian trawler that was near our boat in the F-4. I was about Mach 1.2, probably about 40 feet over the ocean, right about the height of where the captain of the ship would be steering the boat. So I was pretty low and pretty fast. Paul Barrett, thank you for that. I don't know that I'm a legend, but I do appreciate it. Let's see, Roger. Navy had F-16N Vipers simulate Soviet MiG-29 aggressors. Did you ever have a chance to train dissimilar air combat against the F-16N in order to learn how to defeat the MiG-29? Yeah, we flew the F-16N. It was a tough fight. I mean, it's a small airplane and it's a very maneuverable airplane. Yeah, they were tough, and I guess, yeah, that was for the MiG-29. I'd forgotten about that. Mark, from the Spanish Air Force, they say it takes 4 years to completely control a modern fighter jet. Was it the same in the F-14? Well, if you mean to become proficient, you get proficient pretty quickly. There's always something new to learn. If you think you've learned everything, you should probably walk away from it. One of my backseaters was famous for saying, there's always a switch that can be in a better position. There's always something better you can do to make the airplane do what it's supposed to do. And as long as you're continually learning, you'll continue to get better. The moment you decide that I know it all, you should probably walk away. Let's see, any mid-air bird strikes? Yeah, several times, and it smells like chicken in the cockpit when you do that. Most of them were in Texas in the TA-4, and you get little birds down the intake, and it literally smelled like chicken. Did you get in on top 10 on the carrier landing board? Yeah, I do have a top 10 patch. I didn't get in as many as I wanted, but I do have one top 10, so yay me. I have an F-14 t-shirt. Can I get you to sign it for me? This is from Ryan. Yeah, I don't know where you are. If you want to mail it to me, you can, let's see, I mean, I have my business email address, john.schreiber@j2stech.com, and you can probably find it out there anywhere, and send me some information, and we can talk about it if you want me to sign it. Have you ever flown in the F-5? I did not get to. I would have liked that. Let's see. Compressor stalls. How many have you gone through? Well, part of the F-14 ATOPS basically says whether you know it or not, your engine may be stalling. So I don't know how many I've gone through. I've had a pretty impressive compressor stall in an F-4 on a post-maintenance check flight when at about, I think at 1.8, the ramps begin to program towards the outside to keep the shock wave out of the engine. And I think one of the ramps was a little bit slow, and I got at 1.8, you get a compressor stall, you get a lot of sideways motion on the airplane, but slowed down and everything was fine. The F-14, I never had any, other than the launch where I had the switch in the wrong position, I never had any notable compressor stalls. Because I never spun the airplane. If you spun the airplane, you were probably going to cook the engines. So I never got to the point where I spun the airplane. I've been to zero airspeed in the airplane, and I didn't stall it. I didn't get an engine stall. And you go to zero airspeed a lot when you do some dogfighting. Let's see. Did you get flight missions that were secret and you were unable to talk about them? Well, I couldn't. Well, yeah, there's a lot of the flights were secret, but it's not like secret, like you can't tell somebody you flew that day. You couldn't tell them what you did. And that happens every once in a while. What was the best thing you liked about flying the F-14? Was flying the F-14. I mean, it's a full body experience, because you got your G suit on, your torso harness, you're literally strapping on a very powerful airplane with wicked weapons on it, and you and another guy are going to go out and just have a day of it, and you come back, you're completely soaked with sweat and have an exciting story to tell. It was just fun to do. Could the F-14 jam a foe radar? Yes, false IFF returns can be created. You know what? I don't know that we had any jamming capability. I can't recall. So I don't really know on that. Regarding the Rio ejecting from the F-14, here is a story for a later read. It's funny. Here's an excerpt. I was tasked with giving the battle group air warfare commander an orientation flight. Okay, this is from Michael Morales. I'll take a look at that. What was your favorite meal on the carrier? The next one? I'll just go with that. That was from Motorman 2112. Michael Morales. As I pushed on the stick, I heard a loud pop followed by a roar. The cockpit filled with the smoke and lost cabin pressure. I said to myself, this is new. I've never even heard of something like this happening. I had the jet upright and knew exactly what had happened. Transmitted line 52 emergency. My Rio just ejected. Oh, Michael, you did that. I didn't know that. Well, you got a heck of a story to tell. All right, let's see. It skipped again. What versions of the F-4 did you fly? Yeah, poking me in the eye on that one. I trained in the RAG with the F-4J and flew the J in VF-154. Then we got the S's, and then Pete Batchelor said the S airspeeds weren't correct and angle of attack was wrong. So I got to fly some backseat missions with a test pilot and document airspeeds and angle of attacks and everything. And we thought everything was fine, but somebody already made a decision to take our F-4S's, which were literally at the time the newest airplanes in the fleet, give them to the reserves. And I got F-4Ns out of El Toro, one of which was already painted orange because it was going to be a drone to get shot down. And I did 2 cruises in F-4Ns. The F-4N was a great airplane, even though it was ancient. It was a good airplane to fly. But the difference in performance, the F-4S had better turn. The F-4J had low smoke, as so did the F-4S. And the F-4N, you pull it out of afterburner, and you could see it for miles and miles. It had so much smoke. Hence the smoking Thunderhog. What was the most unrealistic thing portrayed about naval aviators in Top Gun? Where to start? There's a lot of poetic license and all that. It's Hollywood, so they're going to do that. Some of the locker room scenes, we didn't have a locker room like that. You weren't taking showers there. You'd come in the morning, you would have showered hopefully that morning, maybe the night before, but you wouldn't hang around the squadron in your skivvies and that kind of stuff. That was very unrealistic. Hi there. This is from Steve. Did your F-14 have the glove vanes? Yeah. And did you notice any difference in the aerodynamics when they deployed? I didn't really notice it, but when you go to bomb mode, when you put the wings at 48 or something like that, the glove vanes would come out. Supposed to do something for the stability, and I guess it really did help if you were doing a bomb run, but I never got to bomb in it, and I didn't notice it when they came out. Did you have any close call mid-air refuel hookups? Yeah, we would refuel all the time. I never had any terrible emergencies in that regard. One really dark night, an A7 pilot retracted the drogue while I was in the basket, and I was just flying on the basket, so I literally flew the basket into where I suddenly became aware of, oh geez, I'm really close to the airplane, and pulled out of it. But that was just me. It was dark. You could barely see the airplane. Let's see. How many hours did you fly in the F-14, F-4 in total? F-14, I only did 1 cruise, and then I went up to Naval Postgraduate School. I want to say it's a little over 400 hours in the F-14, a little over 1,000 hours in the F-4, and a little over, I think about 2,400 hours total in the military. And then I've got another 300 or 400 hours of general aviation time. And oh geez, there's still more questions. Ivan, when it comes to dogfight, I've heard the term snapshot. What does that mean? Well, snapshot is a guns kind of thing where a guy's coming in front of you and you just get your nose on him and he flies through and the pipper's on him and a lucky bullet finds another airplane kind of thing. So it's just a glancing high crossing rate kind of configuration. Did you get to fly the B version? I did not. I wish I'd flown the 110. I didn't get to fly with lantern pods. That was from KLRGT 500KR. And Martin, thank you for your service. Thank you. Well, thank you for that. How difficult is a carrier landing, 1 to 10 scale? Could you talk a bit about the carrier landing technique, nav aids, and night carrier landings? That's a good question. If you think about a carrier landing, it's harder than you want it to be. If you understand the systems and you are precise in how you fly the airplane and you honor the systems that are supporting you doing that, it becomes fairly routine during the day. I would never say a night landing is routine. You lose depth perception. It's a tiny little boat in dark ocean. If there's no moon out and a low weather, low cloud deck or something, or bad weather, heavy rain or snow, yeah, it's kind of rough. But you set an attitude, you fly angle of attack, you don't fly airspeed, although angle of attack is related to airspeed. You're looking at what they call the meatball, which tells you where you are on glide slope, line up, left and right, and angle of attack. And you would have an amber circle if you're on speed, and that's plus or minus 1 unit angle of attack or something like that, which turns out to be a couple of knots. So you just trim up the airplane, you fly it that way, and as far as nav aids were concerned, I had a TACAN, which is basically a VOR of a different flavor, and we had sometimes, if it was working, an ILS kind of system. I didn't have a whole lot of landings, auto throttle landings, where you could couple up and fly what was called I think it was a mode 1 approach, where you're coupled up and you basically fly hands off. I never got one of those done. I tried to do it, but just the systems didn't work for me, or I had the throttle friction on or something. I just was never able to do it. There were a couple guys. The E2 looks good on a locked up landing, and the F-18, I guess, does a really good linked landing as well. Were there any differences, training doctrinal? This is from Miko, between East Coast and West Coast. There was a lot of swagger between the two coasts, but the mission was basically the same. So there might be slightly different variances in the missions. Certainly, the Atlantic Ocean, there's different threats than the Pacific Ocean, but once the war in the Mideast broke out, everybody went there. So I think a lot of that has gone away. The Adam Cotton in the movie The Final Countdown. Whoops, what happened? Again, it jumped up. Movie Final Countdown, we see F-14s dogfighting Zeros. In reality, could they ever have achieved a gunfiring solution given their vast dissimilarities? Even a Spitfire had trouble. I don't know. We would talk about that, and you saw the F-14, that stalled, trying to get real slow. I suppose if a Zero is flying fast, so that it's around 180, 200 knots or something, yeah, an F-14 could do that. I think I misquoted this on my interview. The landing speed on the F-14, when you're all dirtied up, flaps, gear, and everything else, I think I said was 150. I think it's closer to 130. So you could get slow, and could you go slower than that? Maybe you could get down to around 100 and maybe 120 before you stall or something like that. But airplanes need wind over the wings. From Roger, what do you think was the reason why F-14 flew 576 sorties in Operation Desert Storm and not a single Iraqi MiG or SU wanted to fight the F-14, according to Mike Rabins, as they disengaged upon VID. What do I think was the reason? Because I didn't get to, everywhere I went, peace broke out, so I didn't get to do any actual fighting. But I presume they were somewhat intimidated, and they wanted to get back and have dinner. And probably they were flying airplanes that not all the systems were working. Maybe they didn't even have an operating weapon system. So I don't know. Thanks, Al and Hooter. Well, thank you. Well, my question is pretty much straightforward. I don't know what that is. This is from Ekaltz Goman. I'm sorry, I can't make out that name. But well, my question is pretty much straightforward, but I don't see a question. Let's see, from Ivan, how was the pitch rate on the F-14, and how was the F-14 when at high angle was attacked? Pitch rate was pretty good. It had big slabs in the back that would move a lot of air for you and move a lot of airplane. And the wings would come out and help you fly up there. And F-14 handled well at high angle of attack, as long as you were honest with it. You didn't want to get into a terribly deep stall, because it did have a tendency to flat spin, which was not a good thing. I had not been there. Like I said, I've been to zero airspeed in it. So as long as you fly it right and your momentum is carrying you the right way, you'll do okay. Well, the lowest altitude trained to fly. Like I said, my last flight was a TARPS flight, and it was unrestricted low level, meaning I could go supersonic on certain parts of it, and I could go as low as I want. And I probably don't know that I got any lower than about 40 feet on anything. You got to have some room. I mean, if you're going really fast and you're real low, it doesn't take you long to hit the ground. And the PK on the ground is usually 1. Oops. In any case, I'll approach at night. What you remember, really scary, legs trembling. A lot of approaches at night, legs trembling as you taxi out of the landing area. Probably the worst approach at night was my last night landing in the F-4. Real high winds, and it picked up as I was getting to the in the middle position. Went from about 35 knots wind over the deck to 70 knots wind over the deck. So I had just taken a little bit of power off. And as soon as I saw the ball move, I just went to afterburner and held the attitude. And we made it over the round down and taxied into the one wire. That was just, I was along for the ride. That was kind of scary. And yeah, sometimes you could just barely able to use the rudder pedals when something like that happens. Did you use any smart weapons or anti-ship missiles? The AIM-54 is probably the smartest. It had its own radar on it, so it was a launch and leave kind of thing. But I didn't launch any cruise missiles or any of that kind of stuff, and AMRAAM wasn't around when I was out there. I didn't carry any smart bombs on the F-4. They were just all iron bombs, Mark 82s, Mark 83s, and I didn't carry bombs on the F-14. John Ellis asked, did I have a compressor stall? I think I've already talked about that. Steve Lehman, I was lucky enough to make a visit to Miramar from the UK in October '89, 4 days after the San Francisco earthquake. As a 15-year-old kid, it was awesome to see the F-14s doing the break over the runway. Yeah, it was. It was always cool to see those guys coming in. You know, even though I did it, I always look up to see those things fly by. To this day, I still look to the air when I hear an airplane. How many weapons could you fit on the F-14 and F-4? I don't remember the full loadout, but they had a pretty wide variety of things they could carry. And once the F-14 started bombing, that increased. Like I said, I've carried Mark 80. I've carried 500-pounders, 1,000-pounders, and I think 2,000-pounders on the F-4. Didn't have a gun in the F-4. F-14, like I said, Sidewinder, Sparrow, Phoenix, and 600 rounds of HE 20 millimeter, which is cool. That was from Paul. And Dirk, did you see and know about any bad cold cat launches? I didn't see any cold cats or anything like that. I've certainly seen films after that, but we did not, on any of my cruises, we didn't toss any into the sea. Some airplanes flew into the ocean, but behind the ship, but nothing off the front end. F-14 is still flying in an Iranian Air Force. Do you consider them a threat still? I presume if their systems are up, they could be a threat, but I would suspect they're having a real hard time keeping their systems up. Oops, did I just do something? Let's see. Thanks for all your answers. Well, thank you guys for sending me questions. James Lee asked if I'm going to do this again. I'm probably sucker enough to do it. Yeah, sure. Why not? It's fun. Let's see. You do realize the Tomcat had lower wing loading than the Eagle. It could turn much tighter if necessary. I didn't know it had lower wing loading. I do know it's a tight fight, or can be a tight fight with the F-14. F-15, I mean. I don't remember the details of it, but you had to fight your fight and let him fight his fight and not get sucked into something that you couldn't get out of. So, yeah, it was a good fight with the F-14 and the F-15 together. How many pounds fully loaded? The F-14, I want to say 68,000 pounds, and the F-4, I'm not sure. I think that was about 55,000. I don't really know, or I don't remember. This is from the KLRG. That about fully loaded was Charles Howard. F-14 much lower wing loading. F-15 variable geometry glowing. I presume you are correct, sir. When Paul Barrett asks, when drop 1,000-pound bomb doesn't, I don't know what you're asking there, Paul. I think you cut out your question there a little bit. Thank you very much, John. Mike, oh, let's see. Am I at the bottom? Let's see. The F-14 had more wing loading. When dropping a 1,000-pound bomb, will the jet gain altitude? You can feel it come off, but I don't think it gains any altitude. You're screaming downhill. I always did. I didn't do any level kind of bomb drops. I always did 40-degree dive, and usually, if you want to get better, you get more. So you're usually up around 50-degree dive, and you're screaming down at 400, 450 knots, and you punch that thing off, and it goes, and you pull, and you don't really feel that. You just feel something came off the airplane. Let's see.
Okay, guys. So we obviously we have only a couple of minutes left, so get 2 questions in, and Hooter will answer 2 of them questions, and then we're gonna go. So get your questions in, and Hooter will choose.
All right. Very cool. Put the pressure on me there, Mike.
I put the pressure on you.
Well, this one question here, I do want to answer. Was the M61 Vulcan fun to fire? And did you
go for it?
Did you use it practicing towed banners and ground targets? Yeah, that was a great gun to fire. It was fun. I mean, I have strafed with it, and it's cool because you can actually see the bullets hit the ground. I've done air-to-air gunnery, and I've strafed a towed little boat behind the carrier. So yeah, it's a lethal weapon. It's very neat, fun to do. I'm glad I got to do that. Let's see. And do you think we should resurrect the Tomcat?
Yes.
Yeah, might be a good idea. I know there's a lot of people that love to see it, but if you look at the economics of it, it probably wouldn't make sense. All things being equal, could it hold its own in this kind of environment? I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was a really capable airplane when they shut it down with the D. It just probably cost too much. So, and I think that's actually it.
Okay, guys. Let's see if you can
repent of your sins and aye, sir.
Right. Wait, Hooter, answer one more question because there's some great ones coming in. Just answer one more and we'll sign off. Okay.
Let's see. The last one I see here is F-35 is more expensive than the F-14. Not really a question. Am I missing some questions? I have Hans Holtz.
Holtz.
That's the last one I see here, but that's not a question. It's just a comment.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask. Let's see. Ask a.
Oh wait, here's a question I missed. Here's a question I missed. Did you use catapult bridle on the F4? Did you find difference in the launch in the F-14? Yeah, we used the bridle on the F4. They had two big hooks under the wing. You hook basically a piece of arresting cable on it that was folded over and made a little slingshot that we put under the airplane. And yeah, there's a difference in the F4 launch versus the F-14 launch. The F-14 launch would squat, the nose gear would compress, and at the end it would pop up. And the squat, actually my first full weight cat shot in the F-14, I was sitting in the airplane like I was in an F4, meaning I was sitting kind of hunched over, ready to go. In the F-14, you kind of have to sit straight up and get your head over your shoulders because when it compresses, it's about a 20 G momentary smack in the butt. And my head went down like that, and I pulled a muscle in my back, and my back seater, all he heard me say at the end of the cat shot was, "Holy shit." And you know, you don't want to hear that from your front seater when you're in the back seat. And he just asked me in calm voice, "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I got the airplane. I think I hurt my back." And, you know, and because I didn't listen to the older guys, the experienced F-14 guys on how to take the cat shot, and that was my bad.
Awesome. Well, okay, guys. Like we've had 2 hours with Hooter now, so hopefully you've enjoyed this. Like, let me know in the comments right now if you've enjoyed it. And Hooter, did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked it, and I don't think I told too many lies.
So, do you reckon we can get you back on the show? You know, in the future months.
Yeah, I know. I saw somewhere that someone wanted to talk about carrier operations. Can you do like a panel kind of thing? You know, get a couple of different views on something like that. That might be interesting.
So before Hooter goes, let me know if you would like to chat with like Hooter and about carrier operations. I mean, it's going to be like a yes, but yeah. How many are you guys going to love this? Let's see. Let's see. Yes. Yeah, I think that's a resounding yes, Hooter.
All right. And thank you for all the good comments from everybody and great questions. And, you know, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so, Hooter, before we go, like, what are you up to in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I don't really know. My life is not my own. I'm traveling a lot, doing some things that I talked about, you know, with refrigerators, so I don't really know. I'm kind of waiting. I'm supposed to go to Phoenix, or Ohio, or Sacramento, or Boston in the very near future, or where. So I'm fairly open. Just give me a couple days heads up, and I'll be able to tell you.
Of course. Well, Guys, thanks very much for joining us. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you very soon. And big thanks to Hooter for joining us tonight. So thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll see you very soon.
All right, guys. See you later.